If you have questions, concerns, and are just lost when it comes to planning for retirement, meet Steve Hoyle and Derrick Caldwell of the Hoyle Financial Group. You know, Steve, each and every week we come here together, you and I, we talk about the crazy headlines, what's going on in the retirement world, the financial world, the economy, etc. And then I sit back and I think, you know what? A lot of folks may not realize how long you've been doing what you've been doing. Give me a little background, how you got started, why and the how, and all the details.
Well, it's crazy, Jess. You know, my dad kind of required my brother and I to get a business degree in undergraduate because he said, you know, if you have a business degree, you can make a living. And he was so right. And growing up, my grandmother divorced when my twin and I were really young. And we were her only two grandkids. And we kind of grew up together, Jess. It was crazy. You know, she lived in Hobbs, New Mexico. She came to visit all the time. And she was divorced. And my grandfather had left her all these great buildings for income, but she had never bought a car. She had never written a check. She didn't understand what a triple net lease was. She knew nothing about business. But she had to know. She woke up one morning and had to. She was the lady that was always at home kneading the socks. And I'm dead serious. I mean, She was lovely. She was wonderful. But it was funny when we kind of started growing up and she'd need to get her car serviced, we'd go there together. While I'm in town, let's go take my car. And we would do that. And we rocked along, and I really watched her go for the school of hard knocks to learn how to do everything. And I thought, you know, I never want to see anyone in that position. And then, you know, it came time my first semester at Texas Tech. I was going to go to the beach with all my friends, and she called and said, Stevie, do you think we could do some remodeling at my house over spring break? I'm like, sure. So, you know, I drove up there. We got up. I said, let's go look at carpet. Jess, they had always brought someone in that showed them what they were going to do. She had never gone out and bought paint. She had never bought carpet. She had never done any of those things. She had never negotiated that stuff. It was all of those things, and it was fun to watch her catch up, but it was a tough lesson. It really was. I just kind of developed an affinity for people like my grandmother. And so at 25, I decided this is what I needed to do. And, you know, now that it's been 35, nearly 36 years, I've been doing this. You know, and I think about my grandmother all the time. We were so close, Jess. But what's interesting is I meet my grandmother, a man or a woman, a couple of times a year, Jess. They come in our office and, you know, we'll have a couple come see us. And I can remember two in my career really vividly. He came in and said, you know, my wife's not interested in all this. And so he did all the planning, and he would take the forms home and have his wife sign them. And I said, we'd always say, we want to meet her. Oh, well, you will eventually. We never did. And Jess, she called me one morning and couldn't talk and said, he died. And I don't know what to do. She had never met us. She had never been to our office. She didn't understand anything about their money. It was like, wow, what do I do? And then, you know, we had the same thing happen where we had a guy that worked in the oil fields, and she did everything for him. And she came and set up all their planning. And when she died, the same thing happened. So I kind of came up with the rule is, if I can't meet you, we can't take care of you. And I will tell you, though, I still have people come a couple times a year that don't want to be involved. But all of a sudden, one day, it's just dropped in their lap. So I just became passionate about people at least understanding. So I kind of say it like this, Jess. If you think about a watch, you don't need to know how to build the watch, but you need to know how to work the watch and operate the watch. The same thing with your finances. You know, you need to have a working knowledge. You need to understand the lingo, the language. And I think that's at Hoyle Financial what we really do well, is we partner with people and we use building blocks and we learn together and we find out, you know, what are your hopes, your dreams, but most of all your fears. And when we give you that confidence for an incredible retirement, that's what it's all about right there. Come experience a Hoyle difference, I tell people. You know, no matter what level you are, we're going to do the Texas two-step and figure it out. We're going to take 2 steps forward and look at it. Then we're going to step back and review it and figure out how to make it better. And I think that's what we do really well and give people that confidence they need in retirement.
Yeah, that confidence and that added peace of mind. And again, planning for retirement, it's not like you just wake up and know how to do it. I mean, there's a reason why Steve has been doing this for over 3 decades. And let's be honest, when it comes to couples, there's always one that usually takes care of the finances, and there's one that has no idea what's going on, which is why it's so important that everybody's on the same page, in the same place, at the same time when it comes to talking about your finances, both now and in the future. And then there's folks like your grandmother. Let's just be honest. Back in the day, women were just kind of like, hey, you just stay at home. Don't worry about anything. The husband took care of everything. And then all of a sudden the husband's gone and she's left going, well, how do I even go on with life? Making decisions from who's going to put carpet in my house to how am I going to pay for groceries? So again, as things have changed over the years, they're pretty much the same. I mean, finances, income are essential to life, and planning for retirement, if you're married, making sure everyone's on the same page, having that confidence and coming in to see what the Hoyle difference is all up to you. We give you the keys to your financial future right here. Steve, as we mentioned, you've been helping individuals retire for over 3 decades. So you have been there through multiple changes, whether it's the market, whether it's elections, whether it's just how planning for retirement in general has changed. I mean, we say it all the time. It is not your grandparents nor your parents' retirement in today's world. What are some of the biggest things that have changed?
Well, just one of the things that's really changed is when I got started, everyone had a pension. I worked with Phillips Petroleum retirees in Borger, Texas, where I got started. They all had a pension. They really had a 3-legged stool. They had some savings, a pension, and Social Security, and they made it work. Today, less than 15% of Americans have a substantial pension. They rely on 401ks and savings and different retirement plans to make it work. So I think that in some ways it's good because of the inflation we're having, but we've really had to plan better, smarter, and have sharper tax strategies and saving strategies to make it work. It was really interesting getting started. In the 80s, I would go sit down with people, and literally just people would have $1 million or $2 million in their pension, their savings plan with Phillips Petroleum, but they did not have $30,000 in savings because the company took care of me. I could spend everything I got every month. They all had big, nice cars, but they knew the company was going to take care of them. And it's not that way anymore. You've got to rely on yourself and savings, and it was a requirement for a match back then. Today, you can decide if the company's going to do a 3.5% match. Are you going to do the match or not? You don't have to contribute. You're crazy if you don't. But I think the other thing is people need to get in rhythm to save money for retirement. People that retire well often are people that are very routine people. It's really interesting to watch that. But things have changed. I mean, having a strong tax strategy is so important right now. I also think estate planning is so important. It happens once a year still that someone will come see me. They went to work at some a refinery or some plant. They didn't have any kids. They didn't have a wife. So they put their mom down as their primary beneficiary. They had 2 kids. They got married. They got widowed. They're ready to retire, maybe remarry. And their mother is still their beneficiary. I see it all the time. I see a lot of people that will do a will early on and list the 2 kids. Oh, they had a 3rd kid, and the 3rd child is not in the will. I think knowing the numbers and knowing the plan, and that's what we really help people do, is come together and sit down, dot the I's, cross the T's, and figure out it doesn't matter what you don't know, but when we put our cards on the table, it's a place to start. And, when you think about opposites attract here, it's really interesting. What I find is so many people come to me and say, I want to retire in 5 years because the fear of the unknown. When they get a plan in place and they realize they have plenty of money to retire, they come up with the emotional part of it. It's 25% about the numbers, 75% about the emotions. When they figure out what they want to do in retirement, they become passionate about it. I'll see people retire in 12 months because all of a sudden they have that plan. But I can't tell you how many people lay in bed at night worrying about that final phase of life called retirement. It's interesting. People come see me and I ask them, what made you call me? You've listened to me for 7 years and you called today. What was it? I find that interesting, but I'm telling you, I think that planning really separates the men from the boys in the retirement that you can have. And it's interesting. I see a lot of people have done the hard work, but they have a hard time talking about retirement.
Tell you what, Steve, not only has the planning process changed for retirement, but also things like risk. I mean, these things have changed in today's world as well.
Well, it's interesting, Jess. The biggest fear is the fear of running out of money. But what people don't realize, the risk they're taking with their retirement. We're in a crazy economy. The thing that really seems to move the market in a negative fashion is fear. Americans not feeling confident. And I have people come all the time to see us and they say, am I okay with my retirement? We'll do a risk analysis and their risk is so low. They're not risk takers at all. And we show them that 98% of their money is at risk. And one big 2008 could totally wreck the retirement they've all dreamed of. But the better part is half of them have a story about an aunt, an uncle, a parent, a neighbor, a friend that their retirement was ruined for 2008. And they're sitting in the same seat, Jess, doing the same thing. It's
Wow.
crazy. It's crazy. One of the things Derrick, our chief operating officer, does a really good job is helping people understand how much risk they're taking. And when we show them, they're just blown away. And they say, well, that's what I've always done. But Jess, it's scary out there. It really is. So I think that there's lots of things that you can do. But I think one of the important things is to have an income strategy in retirement to make sure that you don't run out of money, but couple that with a really strong income plan as well. I think those are huge risks in retirement. Being able to, the taxes just wiping out what you have. It's interesting. I also see people come and they sign up for Social Security at 62 and boom, they're still working and they're having a clawback. They're just making small mistakes that really wreck that retirement. But the risk in retirement is huge. Jess, I see a lot of people come see me that are taking care of their parents. They still have a kid in college and they want to retire. It's expensive. So often, Jess, when we talk about risk in retirement is you can wreck your own retirement with a few bad decisions. People come set their retirement all up and then go out to an open house on Sunday and sign an offer for a house that they can't afford. And all of a sudden, we have to take money out of their income strategy to pay for the house. So I think if you really sit down and figure out what the why is for you, what you want in retirement, and you get laser focused on that, and then you control the risk of your money so you don't lose all your money in a correction, then you have a strong income strategy and tax plan. You can be successful in retirement every day for the rest of your life and leave money behind to all your loved ones or your charities. That's what it's about.
Steve, as with anything in life, when you get that healthy balance, 9 times out of 10, you're just happier, right? You feel better. So how do you find that retirement balance?
Jess, I think it's interesting that you need to get the right retirement balance of your money. I have a lot of do-it-yourselfers come see me, and they have, for example, zero emergency money. Not anything. Their air conditioner's out or their garage door breaks, and they don't have any money in cash reserves, and the market's down. They don't want to take any money, and they don't know what to do. So it really, coming up with that correct retirement balance is so important. So you need some cash. You need some money market money. Maybe you need a CD at the bank. It's good to have a little money at the bank. Now that rates they were 5.5, they're getting down close to 3 now. Then you think about wealth transfer. What you don't use in your lifetime, you're going to pass on to your kids, your nieces, your nephews, a charity, whatever. But a will, having a really well-developed will, having an estate planning is so important. If you're eligible for estate taxes, thinking about a life insurance strategy to cover those, but really dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So when you check out of here, everything's in order. In Texas, most things bypass probate. You can do your checking accounts, you can do your money market accounts, you can do your house paid on death. So many things. You don't really need a trust. It's really rare circumstances. But we work with lots of estate planning attorneys. We'll help you sit down with one and do that. But what people really need is a medical and a financial power of attorney, one for health or one for wealth. COVID really taught that for people. All of a sudden, you can't call the hospital and check on anybody because you don't have the right to. And those things are so, so important. And then we think about growth. We need growth in our money to keep up with this crazy inflation we've been having. Whether you're in the stock market, bonds right now, making sure you understand what could happen to your bonds, the risk of it. Mutual funds, commodities, what all you have in your growth, but making sure that we mirror your growth to your risk tolerance. What is your risk tolerance? We need to figure that out. We need to figure out what you can stomach. It's funny, people come to me and say, I can't stand to lose $1. Okay, but at least you know that about yourself. We saw people lose so much. It's funny. I think about doing this, just not to get off track, 25 years. I remember nothing happened in 2000. In 2008, everything happened. I remember what people went through during COVID and the market changes, the dot-com crash, all these things. It's funny. People come in and say, I have this broker that I love, but he's only been doing it 6 months. I'm telling you, Jess, what we've seen, we've continued to develop our plan and adjust it from our clients. They've taught us everything. And then we really have to focus on income to make sure you have the income you need. Income today when you retire that you or your spouse, if you have one, can outlive. And then catch-up buckets. I used to talk about those on the radio and on TV every 7 or 8 years. Today, you're going to need more income in every 3 years. It's just crazy how that's going to happen. Do you have a pension? Are you utilizing it correctly? What percentage of that does your spouse get? If something happens to you, have we made up for that gap? If you're living off Social Security as a large part of your plan, if something happens to one of you, where are you going to make up that income? I find so often, Jess, it's not much cheaper for one to live than two. It's really interesting. But, looking at annuities, there's some great annuities out there. Do you have U.S. Treasuries? Do you have CDs? What do you have? But making sure we have that income plan that's bulletproof. It's so important. So when we look at the balance, we want to cut everything together and make it work. It's kind of like going to the symphony. You've got the reeds playing, you've got the drums playing, you've got the violins playing at different times. We want to use your different buckets of money at the right time for the right place. And, I didn't say much about it, but having a strong Social Security strategy. When should you take your Social Security? It's a huge question.
Yeah, very, very true. And it's all about finding that balance. And also remember, everybody's balance picture is going to look different. Everybody's situation's different. So finding that financial balance is key to having that financial success. And that brings me to your process, Steve. What's the process there like at Hoyle Financial Group and, of course, with Retire Texas Style to give our listeners that confident retirement they're looking for and, of course, that balance like we just talked about?
So often, Jess, we have people call us and we do a 5-minute call about answer any questions you have. People have a lot of apprehension about going to the doctor, going to a retirement planner, doing those things. And so when we have that short Zoom call or phone call, there's a question that you're dying to ask us before you come in. Set up a time. Let's talk on the phone and answer that question. Let's get to know each other. Let's figure out what you've done or you haven't done. Let's find out where you are in the process. It's interesting, Jess. It really first starts about gaining trust. Anything strong has a strong trust. And we want to get to know you and you get to know us and make sure we're on the same page. And then as we kind of start peeling the onion back, what are those things you really want to talk about? What is your biggest fear? What is your biggest concern? What is it that keeps you awake at night? If there's that one dream in your retirement, what is that one thing? Because Jess, when we figure those out, and if, opposites attract, if it's a couple, people come together, they get engaged, and then they really want to put the time and the effort to create a plan, a written plan to get in retirement, through retirement, and a successful retirement.
If you'd like to sit down with Steve and Derrick or a member of the Hoyle Financial Group, visit retiretexasstyle.com.
Investment advice offered through Hoyle Wealth Management, a Texas-registered investment advisor able to provide investment advice in states where it's registered, exempt, or excluded from registration. Content contained herein should not be construed as an offer or solicitation for investment advice or for the purchase or sale of any security, insurance, or other investment product. Investments involve the risk of loss, including possible loss of principal. Please consult with a qualified financial, tax, accounting, or legal professional before implementing any ideas or strategies discussed here. Content provided is obtained from sources believed to be reliable but cannot be guaranteed as to its accuracy or completeness. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance products, including annuities offered through Steve Hoyle, Texas Insurance License 716036. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Read your contract for restrictions, limitations, or penalties. Steve Hoyle is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Steve Hoyle is licensed in your state, please call 806-371-9473.